Hello, my intrepid band of fellow OSATers. Remember, OSAT. Welcome to this, the 23rd episode of the Sockmatician podcast. I am Nathan Taylor, also known as Sockmatician, here on YouTube, also on Ravelry, Instagram and Twitter. I was going to say lots of stuff about signing up and subscribing, but you know all that. You see this every time. How are you? This episode is called The Grumpy Knitter, and although I may not be looking particularly grumpy at the moment, I've been a bit of a grumpy knitter this past couple of weeks. So I'm just going to plough straight in and explain what that's all about. I, as you all know, love knitting, and I am incredibly dedicated to my knitting. Excuse me, let's already stop that one. Let's backtrack a little bit. It's a nice sunny day outside and my hay fever season is just beginning, so forgive me if I get a little bit snuffly and snorty and things like that. I have actually gone out today and bought myself some Becanaise, which is the nasal spray, but I haven't started using it yet, so I'll get cracking with that. And I've also not long ago eaten my lunch. Ben and I went down to the cafe, which is downstairs and down the road, a few shops down there. It's not very far away, which is kind of dangerous really. It's a proper traditional greasy spoon cafe, sells lots of sausages and potatoes, and I had 2 sausages, mashed potato and baked beans, and you all know what happens to me when I've got a full tummy and I try and start talking. There it is happening already. So there's going to be noises, there's going to be grumbles, there's going to be belches, there's going to be hiccups, there's going to be all kinds of things, and you're just going to have to put up with it. And the post-nasal drip, thanks to the hay fever. So it's going well. I'm full of my usual charm and decorum. You're all used to me by now, I'm sure. So the Grumpy Knitter has been part of who I am for the last couple of weeks, and I think I need to do something about this now to try and quantify why I've been grumpy about this. It's really hard to put into words, and I had all this sort of formulated before I started talking, and I don't really know exactly what it was I was trying to say, except that, well, one thing, when I started knitting 5 years ago, I stopped reading. Now, because all of my spare time used to be filled up with reading, and now it's all filled up with knitting, or thinking about knitting, or writing patterns, or designing patterns, or something, there's not been any time in my life for reading recently. And I've always been a massive fan of reading books, and I grew up reading voraciously. My favourite place to be when I was a kid was our local library, and I used to go down there. I used to get on my bike and I'd ride down there. We could borrow up to 5 books a week, and I would every week. So Saturday, after the chores were done, and the chores were cleaning out the hamster, cleaning out the fish, and hoovering and dusting my room and making sure any homework was done, then I was free to go and do what I wanted to for the rest of the weekend. And for me, that was spending Saturday sitting in the library, just poring over books, reading stuff, choosing. I'd spend hours choosing the books I wanted to take home with me, and I would get them all scanned and taken out, and I would read them all, and every week I'd go back for another 5, and I used to love my trips to the library. So reading for me, my mum taught me to read really early, and I started reading books very, very early on. We used to have those school reading tests where you test the reading age. And I think that's a bit stupid really, because people are the age that they are and are just better or not quite so good at reading at certain ages. Doesn't mean you've got a reading age of something. I never understood that. But I do remember that they stopped testing me after a while. At the age of 7, I was already at the highest end of the reading ability, which was apparently 13 3/4. And I think that's because I have an older sister, and I used to read the books that she used to read. So she'd be bringing books home from her school library, and I was just in the sort of junior school library, and I'd read all of her books as well. So I've always had that as part of my life, and it stopped 5 years ago. And I don't read. I'm not a massive literature reader. I tend to read sort of fairly easygoing novels for pure escapism. It's not about broadening my mind or anything. I just do enjoy entering the world of a novel and getting immersed in it. And that hasn't been the case for such a long time. So I decided I wanted to not take a step back from knitting, because heaven forbid, that would be awful. But I did want to make space in my life again for reading. So I have a Kindle, and I had a few books on there that I hadn't yet got around to reading. They've been sitting there for 5 years. And I thought to myself, well, I have a commute to work. And I have maybe half an hour on the tube in and out of work. And I thought, well, that's an hour of reading a day. So I am no longer, I'm not saying this is going to be forever. I don't make hard and fast rules for myself ever, because I think that's the way to disappointing yourself and feeling, oh, I'm such a failure. And I don't subscribe to that kind of attitude at all. I think we make our choices in life and we get on with it. But for now, I'm not knitting on the tube. I am going to be reading. And I'm reading The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Late to the party, I know, I understand. I'm really enjoying it. It's good. I'm about halfway through. Interested to see where it's going to lead. I've got some ideas. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who has read it. And please, I only have an hour a day, and it's sort of less than that, because often my commute is taken up with standing in uncomfortable positions with people's faces pressed up against me like this. So I'm not always reading as much as an hour a day. So please don't put any spoilers in and say, oh, so-and-so done it on any of the social media platforms by which I can be contacted. I'm really enjoying it, and I have to say I am loving being back in a reading frame of mind. So that's not to say that there's been less time for knitting in my brain, in my life, but I'm doing a little bit less of it, certainly out and about. Anyway, I'm glad to be reading again, but there's always going to be time for knitting, and the other bits and pieces about me being a grumpy knitter are more down to the whips, so I'll talk about those when we get to that section of the podcast later on. So what has been going on? I've obviously, the big news last weekend was Eurovision. Now, I know a lot of people who watch this podcast live in North America, and I know that most people over there have no concept of what Eurovision is. Well, in this house, it's a very big deal. Ben and I host a Eurovision party every year. This year was quite a small affair. We just had 12 people round, but sometimes it's 20 or 30. And it's a serious business. We have a massive, on the wall just behind where the camera is now, we put up this huge wall chart, which is sometimes sort of 8 to 10 feet by 5 or 6 feet tall. And we have the names of all the countries competing in the final, and the flags that we draw, and we get some guests around. Whoever's early to the party gets to help us drawing all the flags, so it's a bit of a hodgepodge. There it is, that's my beans. Actually, no. Sampling the flavour of that was definitely sausage. I'm expecting the beans to visit later. Least said about that, the better, I think. And so we put on, everyone has a score card of their own, and we score the entrance, and it's all standard Eurovision stuff. We also have a sweepstakes, so you can buy a country, and if your country wins in the real world, then you get to win all the money that may have been raised from other people buying countries. It's a lot of fun. It's very, very... we take it very seriously, but we also have a lot of fun doing it. And what I love about it is it's a great way of uniting people. Sometimes at a party, people just sort of break off into little groups and chat in ones and twos. Well, we are all focused on the same thing, and that's what I love about it. Yes, you can chat. Yes, you can drink. Yes, you can have fun. Yes, you can get up and dance, as often happens if there's a really, really great song on that everyone loves. But actually, everyone's focused on the same thing, and that's brilliant. And during the interval act, that's when we collate our own scores within the room, add them to the wall chart, and find out who our party winner is. And it's fun then to regroup to watch the scoring on the television to see whether our opinion in the room is reflected out in the wider world. Now, the UK didn't do very well. We came third from last. We haven't done very well in recent years, and there are all sorts of theories for this. Lots of theories saying that we're just not very popular in Europe, we in the UK, and it doesn't matter how good our song's going to be, no one's ever going to vote for us. Well, I didn't think that was true. I thought it was largely down to the fact that we've been entering a pile of pap over the last few years and haven't done very well, with good reason. However, this year was slightly different. It was a better song. The chaps who entered, Joe and Jake, they're very sweet chaps. Ben and I met them a couple of weeks ago, and here's a photograph of us with them. And the lady in the middle is Nikki French, who is a British Eurovision entrant from some years ago. I should explain that photograph. Ben's brother Edward and his partner Sasha are massive Eurovision fans, and they go to the actual contest wherever it's hosted every year. And if you're a member of the Eurovision official fan club, Eurovision is not just one day of the year, not even 3 days. 3 days usually for me and Ben, because there's the semis on the Tuesday and the Thursday, then the final on the Saturday of the same week. But Eurovision is something that goes on throughout the year, and there are all sorts of events, and the fan club get together and do all kinds of things. Now, one of the events is the UK's Eurovision preview party, where many of the acts who will be performing at the final get together at a London venue. They do this all around Europe, but the London one this year was at Café de Paris in Piccadilly, and we went along to that as guests of Edward and Sasha, who are members. And so we got a chance to meet the boys and hear a lot of the songs being performed live. It was great fun. Had a really, really fantastic time. Our song this year, I do genuinely think it's a better entry than we've had in recent years. Maya, what do you think about this? I know you're a big fan, and of course, being in Sweden, you are the hosting nation, so maybe you can tell me what you thought about our song from an outsider's perspective. I don't mean outsider, I mean an outsider from the UK, not from the UK. And let me know what you thought, because I thought it was an okay song, but just not good enough. Now, we did all right with the jury voting, but we did really, really badly with the public vote. So that does tend to make me think that perhaps we're not very popular here in the UK, in the wider Europe, and maybe no one will vote for us. I don't know. Ben and I ourselves have written a song which we're trying to get through to be entered into the Eurovision Song Contest, or at least in the selection process. We haven't had any luck so far with it. It's a really good song. It's called Thunder, and we love it. And we've had a couple of versions of it recorded with some very, very wonderful UK singers. It needs a woman with a big diva voice. Anyway, I could talk about Eurovision all night. For all of you who have no concept of what I'm talking about, welcome Australia. I loved having you in, and I thought your song was the best and probably should have won. Who knew the Ukraine was going to win? I remember saying to the guys at our party, because it starts off kind of slow and a bit sombre, and I did say, now give it a chance. There's a moment in the middle where she does some wonderful traditional singing, and then the beat comes kicking back in, and it's really, really powerful moment. And we liked it. You know, it scored quite well in our room. Nobody expected it to win. Nobody. It was a very odd moment, and I think it's largely down to the fact of what the Ukraine has been going through over the last couple of years, and I think there's a lot of support in Europe for Ukraine as a country, and rightly so. So anyway, moving aside, that was Eurovision. I haven't really done a lot else to tell you of note. My beard grows ever thicker, and I'm quite enjoying the fact. I'm combing it on a regular basis and oiling it and looking after it and conditioning it. So if any gentlemen out there have beards and have any really, really top tips for keeping beards lustrous and wonderful, I'm using a beard conditioner and an oil every day, and it really has made a difference, I think. I actually haven't done it today, so I'm feeling a little bit scratchy today. Yeah, if anyone has any tips for what you use, I'd be very, very interested to know, because I think bearded life is different from non-bearded life, and there's things that one needs to know. And the thing is, all you ladies out there, you grow up knowing all of your beauty tips. You get them passed down from either older sisters or mums and aunts. You watch your mum putting on makeup every day. You get taught about hair care. Boys don't have that. There is no network like that for teaching boys these things. I had no idea until I grew my first beard my first proper beard about 10 years ago, I had no concept of the idea of beard rough. The fact that, all the skin that normally gets rubbed off your face in daily life sort of sits there in the beard unless you do something about it. So I have a comb with very sharp teeth, and I'm constantly raking through my beard and exfoliating, and I thoroughly enjoy that aspect of it, and keeping my beard smelling nice. I tell you this, one thing that is really not good when you have a beard: corn on the cob. Corn on the cob dripping with melted butter. You know what I'm talking about. All that melted butter goes everywhere. It just goes in. Now, I'm going to come a little bit closer so you can see. There's quite a lot of hair on my chin at the moment. Imagine how much butter that can soak up. And if you don't get round to scrubbing all of that out really, really thoroughly, immediately, you spend the rest of the day smelling of dairy. You get this sort of like off, cheesy smell constantly sort of surrounding your face. It's very, very unpleasant. No one tells you this stuff. So, now that I am a very bearded man and thoroughly enjoying being so as well. And interestingly, I'm talking about this like it's a new thing. Now, people who got to know me originally through this podcast will know that I had a beard at the time. This was just over a year ago, I then shaved it off because when Ben and I were doing the documentary, I had to shave it off just for continuity. And I kept the beard off for the duration of that, so that they wouldn't, if they wanted to show certain shots out of chronological order, it meant that my hair wouldn't be growing and shrinking throughout. But now that I've got it back and I'm loving it, I'm going to keep hold of it for a while. So it's useful to be able to pick up on a fraternity of information out there that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily have access to. So maybe I'll start a thread in my Ravelry group, Sockmatician on Ravelry, and if there are any bearded knitters out there, or partners of bearded knitters who have information to share, it'd be really, really useful, and maybe I'll have a strand on this podcast about beard care. That would be fun. I'd like that. Yeah, I'm going to do that. So there'll be a new thread about beards. There's very little else to report outside the knitting world. I've been back at work at the Shaftesbury Theatre, as you all know that I do. I work there in the box office, and it's been marvellous. That's all I can say, marvellous. The show's a success, and there's lots of people walking through the doors, and it seems okay that we have to call the police every now and then for disruption in the auditorium because of certain factions within the audience demographic that might want to come and make some trouble. I'm sure that's fine, and that's normal, isn't it? Yeah! Thankfully, I'm usually out of the building when all that trouble kicks off, because I disappear as soon as the show starts. I do not envy the front of house staff at the moment. They're having a difficult time, shall we say. Not everybody. Of course, I'm not trying to tar everyone with the same brush. As with any large volume of people, and because it's a very successful show, large volumes of people are coming to see it, that can sometimes bring with it an unwanted quarter, shall we say. And by quarter, I don't mean 1/4. I mean, you know what I mean. So, since I last uploaded a podcast episode, I am very, very proud to announce that the Sockmatician's Toe-Ups sock recipe has proved very, very popular. Thank you to everybody who has purchased and downloaded a copy. I know there's quite a few projects already appearing on Ravelry, which is great. I genuinely love seeing people's versions of patterns that I've come up with. It seems like it really is becoming what I wanted it to be, which was something that people can latch onto, something like a kind of a gap in the market. I'm so sorry. It had to go. I'm aware that I'm not the first person in the world to have come up with a way of doing a heel flap and gusset sock. God. Heel flap and gusset sock in a toe-up manner. I'm not the first person to do that, but I know there are a lot of people who would like that kind of thing and would be interested in it. So this is why I put the recipe together in the first place. And I wanted it to be a recipe rather than a pattern, so that people could do their own maths and work it in the most versatile way that they need. So any yarn weight, any needles, anything at all, basically, it should work for you. And it seems that it's tapped into that in a lot of people. People have gone, oh, toe up means I can knit until I run out of yarn and have the heel flap and gusset construction that I like. So many of you will probably already have seen this, but I did film and edit together a little advert, the Sockmatician's Toe Ups advert, which is available for viewing on my YouTube channel, and it's supposed to be very tongue-in-cheek. I deliberately did it in the style of classic YouTube. Now that was not me clicking my fingers, I promise. That was my knee. That was this knee that I just moved and clicked. I am nearly 42. I am getting older. You're going to have to put up with these noises from me. I creak a bit. That wasn't me, I promise. I've been very conscious that I nearly did a few minutes ago click my fingers, and I stopped myself. I'm learning. So yeah, it was really fun to see people responding to the advert. It is deliberately ridiculous, and it is deliberately jarring with crazy music and crazy jump cuts and stuff like that, the kind of stuff I don't do on this podcast, and I'm not planning to evolve into that kind of filmmaker. I'm really not, I promise. I just wanted to do something for fun, and it does seem to grab people's attention. Now the good news is that lots of people have bought the pattern, so thank you for that. The better news is that I really love, it's not better news at all, I'm sort of getting tied up with myself, but I genuinely love seeing the stuff that people are putting up out there. I love seeing how it is helping people. The feedback has been brilliant, and so many people have said that they really like the mathematical aspect of it, the fact that it just works for whatever numbers that your normal stitch count around a sock would be. All of that is great. It does lead me on to a plea. Now, this is a very selfish thing. As you all know, I'm desperately trying to build a brand for myself and trying to get as much exposure as I possibly can. Now, one of the best ways of doing that is when people are browsing on Ravelry for different patterns. I know I do this myself. I like to look and see how many projects there are of that pattern, and I can look and sort of see other people's pattern notes and see if they ran into any trouble, see if anyone said this is a not very well written pattern, I had to make up quite a lot of the stuff myself, or people go, this is brilliant, it takes you all the way through it, it tells you everything you need to know. And I know I do that. But sometimes I don't even get that far. Sometimes it's just about seeing, oh, do you know what, that's a popular pattern, it's got sort of a couple of hundred projects on Ravelry, and that makes me think that it's a good pattern without even having to explore that far. So I'm also aware that not everybody who buys a pattern makes it. That's fine, things can just sit in a queue for a while sometimes, or sometimes people do make it but don't always put everything they make up on Ravelry as a project. I have a plea, and I hope you don't mind me asking. I don't ask a lot of my viewers, but I am going to ask this. If you have bought and made one of my patterns and haven't posted the project on your Ravelry page, I'd be really grateful if you could. A photograph is all it takes, it doesn't need to be amazing, and just the knowledge that it's up there, the knowledge that it was a successful transaction from purchase to knitting to project, that would be really great. I'd love to see more people with links, because it's just really useful. It's really, really useful, and that is my plea. I'm not going to say it again. That is my plea for you all. If you could put up your projects, I'd be very grateful. Of course, you're under no obligation. You owe me nothing at all, and that's absolutely fine. So Sockmatician's Toe Ups, going really, really well. The other thing is that I wanted to talk about. Oh yes. Now a lot of people have been asking about the scarf pattern, and I did want to talk about that a little bit. I have worked really, really hard on getting it ready now. There's quite a lot of stuff in it, and tutorials I needed to shoot for some of the less known techniques within it, and you'll be delighted to know sausage and a bit of mash. You'll be delighted to know. Do you know, there are many more dignified podcasters out there than I, and it's not an exclusively male thing. I noticed that people like Eric Lutz, he never belches on his podcast. He never hiccups or cracks his fingers. He's clearly a much more genteel soul than I am. Aren't you, Eric? People will be delighted to know that I have completed the first draft of the scarf pattern, and it's now with the wonderful Michelle Hazel, who is my fave tech editor. If I've said this before, hello Michelle, I know you watch. Michelle, you're probably on holiday already, so if you don't see this till the time you get back, I hope you had a lovely time away. Michelle is so brilliant, and I trust her implicitly with pointing out all the flaws in my patterns. If anybody has noticed a flaw in one of my patterns, it will be one of the ones I have not run past Michelle, just to put that out there, because I am not infallible at all, and I am very, very aware that sometimes when I put a pattern out, even though I've tested it as rigorously as I possibly can, no one is perfect, and I don't think perfection is actually achievable in life, but it's no reason for us not to strive for it. And I know that a couple of people have pointed things out to me, that there have been sort of spelling mistakes or numbers written down wrongly or somewhere along the lines of my pattern. Thankfully, nothing major, but I do address that, and I always send out an amendment and an update to everyone who's bought it so far via Ravelry's very, very useful service for doing that. So if you're one of those people who has spotted something in my pattern and say, well, Nathan's talking about Michelle all the time, she is that brilliant, that will be a pattern that I didn't run past her. So it is now with her, and the scarf is with Michelle, so I'm hoping that when she gets back from holiday that I won't have too many revisions to make, and I should then be able to get the pattern out to you very soon. I did have to laugh. I found knitting the scarf incredibly easy. It was really intuitive, and I really, really enjoyed all of the different things that were in it. It made it lots of fun because it's got double knitting and the 2-colour brioche, and you're transitioning from one to the other in every row just to do that middle bit. There's increases and decreases. The skull face is made with a little bit of lace, and there's also the cast on and the bind off are slightly unusual because there's a colour change halfway across. All of that is actually really, really simple to do. Writing it down, however, to communicate what to do to someone who won't ever have done this and won't necessarily have something in front of them to yet, because they haven't started making it yet, to refer to, is incredibly complicated. So I'm a bit scared. The pattern looks scary. It's genuinely not. I promise you it's not. It's a long pattern. I go into lots and lots of detail about all the different techniques. So I'm hoping that even if you've never done any of this stuff before, and there's lots of things in there that people probably just, I'm sure, won't have done, then there should be enough information within the pattern pages itself for you not to need any external resources apart from the links that I make to the tutorials on my channel that will show you how to do things. So like double yarn over in double knitting is slightly unusual. It makes a lovely big eyelet hole. That's what I use for the skull's eyes in the scarf, and it's really, really easy, but not necessarily instinctive. So the doing of it is not hard at all. The explaining of it has taken some time. So I'm a little bit worried that people might be put off when they see it and go, oh, there's so much in it. But the joy is the knitting of it is dead simple and really intuitive and really flows. And I'm hoping people will take it on as a challenge and be very, very rewarded. Don't you think, Aloysius? He agrees with me because he saw me knitting some of it. That's a lie. He was wool. In his embryonic wool stage, he was in the room at the same time as me knitting some of it, and he knows. I'm genuinely trying to justify chronology blips with an anthropomorphic knitted bear. You know what I'm talking about, don't you, Kay? You have all of your bears, they're conscious and sentient, you know that. I've been following with great interest, talking of the Bakery Bears and talking of Kay, and Dan, hello both to you both. I've been following with great interest Dan's double knitting knit-along in the Bakery Bears group on Ravelry, and it's been so gratifying to see so many people just chucking themselves in and giving it a go. And some people have had a little bit, some struggles, and some people have taken to it like a duck to water, but everybody has found success, and that's amazing. Even if it's something that people have found tricky to begin with, it's been really, really exciting to know that there's now a whole new clutch of brand new, fresh double knitters out there. I am genuinely going to take over the world with double knitting, one knitter at a time. Oh, cat. That's my dastardly plan. So I want to get everyone double knitting, and Dan is doing my dirty work just fine. I'm going to move straight on. I'm just going to crack on. I think this is going to be a fairly short famous last words, I've said this before. So anyway, to recap, the scarf is nearly out and about. Some of you may have noticed the recent video tutorial for the double yarn overs in double knitting. That is a precursor to the pattern coming out, which will hopefully be very soon. I am thoroughly enjoying being in this room at the moment. My head is right in the way, but can you see right here, there's this vase of beautiful, beautiful lilies. They are absolutely gorgeous and they smell divine. I am actually going to have to go, sorry, I'm turning my back to the microphone. I am actually going to have to go and snip off all the stamens because they do look like they're about to start shedding their pollen, and as we all know, that stains to hell. And I don't want to be doing that. We've got lots of precious things over there, so that they smell wonderful. So thank you to my lovely friend Anthony, who brought those on Saturday when he came to our Eurovision party, and there it is, all nicely wrapped up in a little ball for you. So let's move on. I have a couple of questions in the podcast questions thread, some of which I have addressed directly in there. Somebody wanted to know what this blanket was, and it's Stephen West's Brick Street pattern, and it's knitted with Twilly's Freedom yarn, which I think is discontinued now. It was a bugger to work with, and it splits like it's almost like a roving. It's so thick and it's so unplied. But that's what that is. Who else? Oh, it's Aileen that asked. Hello, Aileen. Kathleen as well has asked me about tea. She's asked me to instruct all of the barbaric Americans how to drink tea. Now, I'm sorry, Kathleen, I don't really have an answer for you. I'm not a tea aficionado. I am sorry to prick the bubble there and destroy your image of all of us Brits sitting over here with our little fingers in the air. It's just not like that. I know you've all seen Downton Abbey, and I know you all think that's what England is like, but it's not. It might be in some places in Middle England, but certainly not in London, the great metropolis that is London. Most times, tea will come in a paper Starbucks cup, and that's as good as it gets. I don't really drink tea. I never make tea for myself. I'll drink it occasionally if someone is going to make it for me. In fact, my beverage of choice today is water. And filling the space while I drink it. Now, the worst thing is I've now got a moustache full of water, so excuse me while I just press that out, otherwise I'll be dribbling down my face all the way through the next part of this podcast. So, Kathleen, I'm sorry to disabuse you of the notion I have nothing to add on tea. And I'm also, if anyone saw me slightly taking the mickey out of beverages on a knitting podcast, the other episode, that's probably enough to tell you my thoughts on that. I'm not going to be starting to drink tea on this podcast. It's not my thing. But thank you for your question. She also asks, who's Nathan Gage? Nathan Gage is my birth name and is my real name. I'm Nathan Taylor professionally in everything that I do. I took on the name Nathan Taylor when I started, when I was at drama college, and I have been Nathan Taylor professionally ever since. So all of my acting work and performing stuff is done under Nathan Taylor. Anyone who has seen my wedding film, excuse me, may have noticed that I was married under the name of Nathan John Gage, otherwise known as Nathan Taylor. That is my official legal status as a married man. So it was odd because it was a kind of a performance gig as well, because I was performing on television. So I wanted to be, and I feel like I'm Nathan Taylor these days. More people nowadays know me as Nathan Taylor than Nathan Gage, but Nathan Gage is who I am, and it's on my birth certificate and it's on all of my bank things, which is why anyone who's had sort of payment information from me via PayPal and stuff, it's all under Nathan Gage. Question answered. The other question was, now I don't know your name, I just know your Ravelry name, and it's Smine, but I believe from seeing it elsewhere that it might be Smine, because you've got a Q on the E, so I don't know how to pronounce that. But you were asking me about, I was talking about flaring on the top of a toe-up sock and what the best bind-off would be, stretchy enough to work on a toe-up sock, but not too stretchy that it just doesn't have any give to it at all. And she was asking me about, have I not thought about doing the sewn tubular bind-off? Well, yes, and I did answer this in the thread, but to anyone else, it's a great idea. But my preferred rib on a cuff of a sock is 2x1. It's not an even number, so it's not going to work. However, it has made me really interested in seeing if there's a version or an alternative that might work. So I may have a look into that to see if there's a way of deconstructing the tubular bind off so that it would work for a 2x1 rib. In my head, there's a sort of tickle here that's saying, I can't think of any reason why I shouldn't. I'm sure it would. I know it's always done with an even number, but I'm sure it should be fine. It may not be, I don't know, but I can't envisage a stumbling block. Often, the way my brain works, I can look at a problem and go, oh, I don't know what the answer is, but I can see that there's a problem there. And at the moment I'm going, can't see it, can't see the problem. That little thing that makes me just do things. Maybe it's my obsession here, the obsession that's in my head. He sits right here and he sounds like that and talks to me and says, you need to do that, you need to learn more about that, you should go into that and make sure we don't make any mistakes. That's my obsession talking. And he's saying, you can't see any problems with that, maybe there's a way of doing it, why don't you have a look at it? What have you started? I blame you, Smine. And people were positing lots of other options, like maybe doing a folded over cuff. I get that it's a good idea. I don't like the thought of it. too much work. I'm far too lazy. And another one would be to sort of do some double knitting at the top. Again, I like a rib. I like a ribbed cuff. What I'm looking for is a bind off that will give me the exact same stretch but tension as when working down using the German twisted cast on or the old Norwegian cast on. That's my go-to cast on for cuff down socks, and I'd love to find something that's exactly the same binding off, that gives me that kind of elasticity. I don't mean give, I mean, you know what I mean. So that's the questions, podcast questions done. Now let's move on straight on to what's tat? Today's tattoo is a little bit hidden, so I'm going to need to disrobe. I don't mean it's hidden somewhere private, it's just on my arm, and this is quite a tight-fitting sleeve. Get your mind out of the gutter. So, today's tattoo is Fawahodi. Now, I don't speak Ghanaian or ancient West African, so I have no idea whether or not that's pronounced correctly. Fawahodi, it looks like this. But it's one of the Adinkran symbols, and It's this blue chap here. Some people say it looks a bit like a butterfly. Some people say it looks like the X Factor symbol. Well, let's get it a little bit closer to the camera and see if it will focus nicely. There we are. I think it's going to be up that way or that way. Not really sure. It's one of the Adinkran symbols. I have several. I've talked about them already. They're West African ancient symbols where sort of Ghana is now, and they all mean different things, and as you'd expect, why would they all mean the same thing? Stupid. They all do mean different things. Many of them have really positive, powerful, wonderful meanings, and Fawa Hodi means independence, freedom and emancipation, and I believe wholeheartedly in emancipation. I think we are all too fettered in our lives by social convention, by feeling that we should behave or be a certain way, when actually I think it's good to express yourself. It's good to have freedom of expression. It's good to feel free as a person. And I'm a very independent kind of person. I don't respond very well to being told what to do. I like to live my life banging my own drum, which is why one of the songs that we chose to have sung at our wedding was "Make Your Own Kind of Music" by Mama Cass, sung by my very dear friend Hannah Waddingham, who is now in Game of Thrones. Are any of you Game of Thrones fans? I suspect many of you will be, because Game of Thrones seems to be hugely popular with the knitting sorority / fraternity. If you do watch Game of Thrones, I don't know the name of the character Hannah plays, but she's the one who rings a bell and says "Shame! Shame!" behind Gurley walking through the streets naked. I don't watch it. I'm afraid I haven't seen it. But she does that, and was a very, very dear friend of mine, and sang at our wedding, backed by the London Gay Men's Chorus. Amazing. And what was brilliant recently was she posted on Facebook a photograph of the ultimate "I've made it." There was a screenshot from Family Guy where Peter Griffin is dressed as her character, saying "shame." You know you've made it when you get Family Guide. Oh, it was just brilliant. I absolutely loved it. And I rather cheekily posted on her Facebook page, "The resemblance is uncanny." Oh yes, independence, freedom, emancipation, yes. So that is what that means. I've got the page here on, where is it? Here it is, so you can see Fa Wo Hodi. It means it's part of the expression Fa Wo Hodi ene obre na enam. Now, I have no idea how to pronounce that, and I think it's probably something like Fa Wo Hodi ene obre na enam. I don't know. It means, and I love this, the whole phrase is really brilliant, independence comes with its responsibilities. Now, so going on from what I was saying about living a free and independent life, which I think is amazing, I absolutely agree that kind of independence does come with its responsibilities. It wouldn't be good to say, "Oh, I think I'm independent. I like that car. I'll go and take it for myself." I don't mean that at all. I mean having the independence to do good as well as be selfish. All of those things are wrapped up in what that symbol means for me. So that is today's What's Tat. Now, in terms of Grammar Rant, it's been very interesting to see the thread of Grammar Rants. And after last episode's Grammar Rant, a lot of people have been agreeing with me on Me and I. People talking about hypercorrection as well, which has been really interesting. And getting into the whole myself issue, reflexive pronouns. Not going to do that again. But it's been really interesting to see people getting on board. Now, one of the things that really struck me was that sometimes there are regional variations in a language which become almost dialectical. And I was talking about this in the thread on Ravelry. I I'm a massive supporter of minority languages. We have two in the UK, one which is all but died out, which is Cornish, and the other which is Welsh. And I believe very strongly that these need to be protected. Now, there are certain sentence structures and constructions within regions of the UK that are non-standard. And I don't say incorrect, I'm saying non-standard. And I think it's really, like, for example, an ex of mine is from Northern Ireland, and he would say things like, I should have went to the shops rather than I should have gone to the shops. And it wasn't him speaking grammatically incorrectly, it was just a non-standard grammatical construction, which is absolutely right and acceptable where he is from. Sounded odd to me, but I think it's part of the local and regional colour and character of how people speak. So there's this battle within me between what I know to be correct and what I feel should also be protected. And I have this sort of hypocrisy thing happening in my brain, going, yes, but it sounds wrong, it's not correct. Oh yes, but we want to be protecting it because it's charming and it's sort of traditional. So I don't know where I stand on that really. I think I really do want to protect those things. So if ever there's something which is like a regional variation that is non-standard, perhaps that's a different thing from just being plain wrong. But then there are other things which are just plain wrong and should never be used. That's my general grammar rant for the day. I'm going to crack straight on with some knitting stuff. So let's get on to whips. So this is a whip, but it's also a half-finished object, which is not a phrase I like, but I haven't woven the ends in yet, but I have. I have finished the first of the socks, which have been causing a little bit of a stir on Instagram. The close-ups of these socks, I mean, look at the colours on this. They are just incredible. I absolutely love this. My one criticism of this colourway is it doesn't seem to be quite as much of the turquoisey blue as there is of the other colours. So you get sort of large passages, like here for example, where you don't see any of the blue, and then you have a bit, it's kind of almost pooling in a strange way, in a way that the others are not. But this is the finished sock. I really, really love it. It's made with Misty Alpaca, and I think I have the band here. I do, so it's Misty Alpaca, that's the ball band there, and you can see the symbol is peace, love and alpaca across the top. And if you notice, if I hold there, this little symbol is tattooed right there on my arm. This little symbol is represented just above it there, or it's not actually a heart, it's a coma, it's something else, akoma, not a coma. Sorry. And the only thing I don't have tattooed on me is an alpaca. And no, I don't have any plans to tattoo an alpaca on my body either, much as I love them. It's colourway HS56. So if you're interested, but it's hand paint sock yarn fingering weight. And it's 50% alpaca, 30% merino, 10% silk and 10% nylon. It's just an absolute joy to work with. It feels so unctuous and fabulous, and it's really, really come out very well. It's quite a generous yardage. You can see it's a sock, but it goes pretty much up to my elbow, and it has caused a real stir. The number of comments and likes that I've had when I've posted photographs of this colourway have been out of this world, so people are obviously loving that. Now I have, as I always do when I complete one sock, I always immediately cast on the other one, even if it's late at night. As I finish doing the last weaving in of the two ends, then I always cast on, even if I just do one round, I just make sure it's back on the needles. It's my way of preventing second sock syndrome. And here is how far I have got with sockling number 2. It's a bit more than a sockling now. I call the toes of a sockling because they're kind of cute. So there we are. This little progress marker is just to show me where my toe increase is finished. Obviously, I am using the Sockmatician's toe-ups recipe, and obviously it fits me very nicely. Now, I did actually knit part of this twice. I had got up to probably about here above the heel flap, and I wasn't quite happy with the fit. Now, before you write in, that was nothing to do with the recipe. That was based on, I had these boys, which were my samples for the Sockmatician's toe-ups. I thought this was a bright rainbow. Really? It's all about the rainbows, kids. I did that because I'm probably going to screenshot that for the YouTube video. So yeah, I worked this sock originally on the same notes as this sock. Now I have a slightly different row gauge with this yarn. It's the same needle, but slightly different row gauge than I had with this. And so I worked 60 rows from toe to the start of the gusset increases, and I did the same with this, and it was actually stretching rather tight. So it fitted, it was great, but across my instep, across the instep of my foot here, the stitches were pulling open quite a lot. And obviously, as you know, when knitting can be the right, you can knit the right length, but when you put your foot in it, suddenly it doesn't fit anymore. And you think, well, it was the right length. But that's because unstretched knitting is one thing, but when it's a certain length, but when you put something in it and stretch it out, it's going to shrink that way. So lateral stretch is going to give longitudinal shrinkage. And I hadn't taken that into consideration, so my row gauge was a bit different, so it felt really tight. So I went back to the beginning of the gusset increases, added another 5 rows, and now it fits really nicely. So it does go to show you, if I had followed my own instructions and knitted it so that it fitted on my hand to this point here, as demonstrated in the recipe, then it would probably have been okay, because if I put that on now, the gusset increases start right about there. Follow your own advice, Taylor. It won't go wrong. So one thing I did want to do with these socks, now this is just for Zena, because I know that Zena loves her colour matching. I'm very pleased with the way this worked out. Even down to, in the middle of the dark green, there's one, it's hard to see there, there's one little paler green line going across the centre line there. Oh, I cannot guarantee that my tension is so consistent that by the time I get anywhere near this end of the sock that I'll be finishing in the same place. It sort of won't matter, I think. The fact that it's the toes, you know, when I'm sitting and both my feet are out, people will see that they match there, and that will look enough for me. I think I can cope with any other little fluctuations in gauge and tension. So I'm very happy with this. I was at work the other day and it was a little bit quiet, and I was upstairs all on my own, and I had my Kindle and I had my knitting, and in between taking telephone calls, what was great was for the first time, clearly I haven't read since I've been knitting, but I was reading and knitting at the same time, and I tell you what, the Kindle's great for that, because you're not holding anything open, it's just there on the desk, and even when I'm tensioned and ready, I was just holding, just pushing the button, and away I go. So that was all marvellous. So I may do some more of that in the evenings, which would be nice. So there we are. That's one of the whips. The other whip is my long-suffering. Ben's just walked in. Hello, Ben. Ben. My long-suffering piano number 3, which has been languishing, and I've been feeling very guilty about it. Well, I have done some work on it. Admittedly, not a great deal, but here it is. It is. I promise you, it is a little bit longer. I'd forgotten actually. There was no reason for me not to be knitting this. I just got sidetracked with other things. I was starting to feel that perhaps I didn't like it as much. Not true. Not true. I've done a few more rows on it. Thoroughly enjoyed doing it. Working with this yarn is gorgeous. It's the Cherish base by John Dunballum of Easy Knits. The colours are Van Gogh, as we would say here, or Van Gogh for you Americans, and the black is a custom dye. He doesn't actually do it in black, but he did when I asked him to, so it was lovely. It's so soft and so squishy, and it's got some cashmere in it, and it's really, really lovely, and oh, it's going to be gorgeous to wear. I'm really looking forward to getting more of this done. And the few rows that I have done, I'll let you into a little secret, I did them this morning knowing I was going to be podcasting today, just so I could say I had, but I have done some. It actually felt really nice. I haven't done any double knitting for a little while. I've been too busy with the socks and with some stranded stuff, which I'll show you about in a moment. So I haven't actually had any double knitting in my hands for a while. It's really nice. It's really, really nice to get back to it. I am very comfortable with one yarn in both hands. My fingers do their little dance. I always think because I tension my yarns like this, I always think that when I'm working double knitting and doing sort of the yarns are coming backwards and forwards and doing their thing, that they're like, you know, those is it grebes, the ducks that have the sort of the mating ritual where they sort of bob their necks up and down in front of each other in pairs. My fingers remind me of that. A little insight into what goes on up here. You don't want to stay there for very long, let me tell you. So that's basically all I have to say on this one. It's all, as you know, it's done with cables. It's knitted on the bias, so the rows go diagonally. It's going to take me a little while because there's a lot of it, and the cables slow things down a bit. But it's going to be a long-term project. I'm in no hurry for it. I am actually really, really enjoying it again. So now that I've picked it back up, I know there'll be more work done on it very soon. As I said, I thought I was starting to fall out of love with it. It's not true. I love it. The final thing that I've been working on, see, not knitting on, working on and knitting, is my stranded cowl. Again, it's all about John's yarn today. I'm using his big boy base and the big boy gradient stacks. Now, this is the main reason I've been a grumpy knitter this week. I realised people will have seen on Instagram that I showed a photograph of the purple and grey looking great. It dawned on me the other day, I did some more measurements. I just cocked it up. I just cocked up the measurements in the planning stages. And because my plan is to use the gradient stacks are really, really lovely. They're lots of different greys, all of the same base. Really, really nice. And my plan was to use that as the contrast colour against the plain purple as the background. And I was going to work from dark grey to lighter to lighter to lightest, and then work back out to dark grey, so it'd be symmetrical on both ends as you work your way around the cowl. That was the plan. It was going to look amazing. So I'd done the maths, worked out that the pattern repeats, quite a large pattern repeat, so I was limited to where I could stop, otherwise I'd look like I was finishing half, just midway through nothing. So I wanted to get to a certain place. I could either do it the half repeat or the full repeat, so I was governed by that number of rows and dividing by 10. So, because there's 5 colours of grey and I'm going to be using them twice. I realised that if I continued with the maths that I had done, that the cowl when around the neck would probably be about this deep. Not the plan at all. I wanted to sit about there like that. So about half. So I had to do a lot of different maths, and instead of doing 9 rows of each colour, I am in fact going to, and having 10 different strands, so the middle band would be, the lightest colour would be twice the thickness of the others. I'm actually going to be doing 6 rows of each colour, but only a 7-row band of the middle one, which will give me 55 rows, which is the perfect place to stop on the pattern repeat. Which meant, of course, that I was already well into my 3rd colour, so I had to rip that out, rip out the 2nd colour, and rip out 3 rows of the 1st colour. Ben can't bear it when I rip stuff out, but it is for the best. It is most definitely going to make the pattern better, and I think it'll look nicer as well with thinner bands of the colour. It is definitely all for the best. So I've started again, not from scratch. And here we are. Here's the work. It curls a bit. I'm assuming that's all going to come out in the block. I don't know much about stranded work really, but this is where we are. This is where we're at. So I've started with a corrugated rib with one round of each of the contrast colours. Then I've got a Vickle braid going across there. That took some time. And then I'm into my I'm just on the first row of the third colour, so that's why these stitches on the needle are a little bit paler than these ones here. And working the way around, it's a really lovely pattern. I don't know much about my stranded tension. I don't know whether this is... Oh, I'm losing a stitch mark, hang on. I don't know whether it's a good tension or not. I don't know how much it may or may not even out in the block. I know that stranded knitters will say that almost anything gets improved by a good block, but I'm not too unhappy with it. That's not a mistake. That purple one is supposed to be purple. Look, it matches that one there. So I really am very pleased with it so far. I'm enjoying knitting it. It's a lot of fun. Here's the back, because I know a lot of people like to see the floats across the back. I'm trying to keep the tension as even as I can, and I think it's coming out rather well. I have to say I am quite pleased with it. Originally I was working, as I do with double knitting, I was working with a yarn in each hand. So I would have the purple in my right hand and the grey in my left, and I'd be knitting with one or the other accordingly, grebes. And I was realising that my tension with this hand was much, much looser, and my grey stitches were huge. Partly that's a bit of yarn dominance, because I've deliberately got those on the left because I want that to be the colour that pops. So I certainly didn't need to compensate for that even more by having looser stitches. So I've been experimenting with ways of tensioning the yarn so that I've got both over one finger on the same hand. And now I could probably do with some sort of yarn guide. So now I'm working like this. Let me slip that and I'll just do so. I can knit with the grey there, or just as easily knit with the purple there. I don't know if you even could see that, so I'll do that again. So I can either knit with the grey, can't do it, can't do it on the camera there, so the grey one going round, or I can just as easily knit with the purple, so I can just choose whichever colour I need. And actually that's been working for me rather well, and I'm getting much more even tension, so that's great. So I'm a two-handed, let me undo those stitches before I forget where I am. I'm a two-handed double knitter, but I really am an English style stranded knitter. Who knew? I certainly had no idea. So that's what I've been working on. It made me grumpy because there was a lot of many hours, but it's all good practice. I am going to be starting, I'm going to cast on my Nahani River tank top, which is stranded all the way up. It's got steeks for the armholes and for the neckline, all brand new stuff, and it's a big commitment in terms of money, it's an expensive kit, and time as well. So I want to make sure that my stranded knitting skills are really up to scratch. So that the fact that I've had to do a large portion of this twice means I'm just getting more practice. There's no such thing as wasted time in knitting. It genuinely is true. So there we have it. I don't have any FOs to show this week, apart from the finished sock, but that doesn't really count. And I don't have any stash acquisitions either. So I am going to call this one a day. It's been wonderful talking to you. Oh, no, but before I do that, of course, I'm so stupid. Let's forget everything about it. I was about to wrap it up, forgetting one of the most important things about today. So, I'll come to that in a minute. The knit along, the bag giveaway from Petra. I'm so sorry, I nearly forgot. It was right here looking at me. So of course this is the bag that I showed from NähSt Designs last time, with its matching Piggy Orchard Notions pouch, which has glorious happy stripes on the inside. This one is plain green, with a pocket there matching its Piggy, and this whole bag of goodies and lovely stuff from Petra there. What I asked people to do was to post on Instagram I've lost my stitch marker again, hold on. Is to post on Instagram a photograph of them with their favourite knitted project, and then they could, where is my Instagram? Then they could, in a place that represented them. That was the plan. So, I'm just now going to go straight to Sockmatician Bag Giveaway, Sockmatician Bag Give Away. No results found. I tell you what, I'm going to stop recording now, and then I'm going to find all the stuff that I need, and then I will come back in a moment. Right, I'm back. I've managed to wrestle Instagram into submission, and I do now have. There were 9 posts. I'm not going to go through them. Some of them lovely. There were sheepy socks on couches. There were baby gifts in Iowa, and there is one for me, very clear winner. So the winner is Genuine Knits. Genuine spelt not as you'd imagine. So I'm going to assume that your name is. It just says Genuine Knits on your page as well. I know nothing about you at all except your Genuine Knits, and you are the winner. And you posted this picture wearing some yoga socks with the most wonderful backdrop. I mean, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous view. And you've said here, I just love these yoga socks, and my deck in the mountains is one of my favourite places. The colours and ever-changing view feed my creativity. So, well done, I'm going to say Jenny, Genuine Knits, for that picture. This will be on its way to you. So what I need you to do is contact me on Ravelry, please. PM me there with your postal address, and I will send that off to you very, very soon. So congratulations to you. Thank you to everybody else who has taken part in that. I know I asked you to jump through hoops, so I'm very, very aware of that. And but so for all of you who took the time to make the effort to do that, I really enjoyed it. So thank you very much for that. And please, if anybody wants to visit Petra's shop, the address is on screen just here, and you too could be the owner of one of these. So Jenny, Genuine Knits, this is on its way to you. Before I sign off completely, I would also like to mention that I've been contacted by Alison, who has offered to give some yarn from her stash. She says she has too much stash ever to work with in her lifetime. So she's offered to give a particular skein of yarn as a prize or as a giveaway or something. So it made me think that perhaps what we should do is I should do a Sockmatician's Toe-Ups knit along. So I'm going to start a thread specifically for that. We'll have a chatter thread and a finished objects thread, and over the next, I'll say until the end of June. It's only the middle of May now, and I want to give people plenty of time. And the end of June happens to be my birthday. My birthday is the 30th of June, which is often a good closing date for competitions. When I was a kid, we'd on cereal packets, you could collect things and collect vouchers and tokens and send them off and get a prize. And often the closing date was my birthday. So my birthday on the 30th of June seems like a good date for the closing of a Toe-Ups cowl. So if you're putting up any finished projects, then please tag them with STUKAL, STUKAL, Sockmatician's Toe-Ups cowl, and I will use that to help me judge the winning project. You know what I'm talking about. Now, the joy of the Sockmatician's Toe-Ups recipe is that you can use any yarn at all, fingering weight, DK, worsted, Aran, doesn't matter. Whatever you've got, hand spun, it'd be great for hand spun, anything non-standard, because it's all worked out mathematically on your own knitting gauge. So as long as you know how many stitches per inch you get, and you know the measurement of around the widest part of your foot, then all will be well. So you can go to town. It's for a plain vanilla sock pattern. There are instructions in the recipe on how to attach contrasting heels. So if you want to do contrasting heel toe and cuffs, then that's easily done as well. So if you've got sort of a crazy skein of yarn that needs using up and you can't really think of anything to do with it, then this will be the perfect opportunity for a little de-stash as well. I also think you can customize the Sockmatician's toe-ups recipe to substitute stocking stitch for any stitch pattern you like. So if you want to do a basket weave or rib or anything like that, then feel free. As long as your project is made using the Sockmatician's toe-ups recipe, then you are eligible for entry into the cowl. If you are already entered into another cowl and you've already used this recipe, I'm okay with you entering it here as well, as long as that doesn't interfere with the rules of anything else you might have already entered. I'm sure people wouldn't mind, but that's up to them. So if you're free to enter it into this one, then by all means do so, even if you've entered it elsewhere. So as long as there's no cast on date, so the cast on can only be after the Sockmatician's toe-ups pattern was released, which was a couple of weeks ago. So from then to the end of June, you must finish by the end of June. That's the only stipulation. And Alison's skein of yarn, which I believe is pink with sparkles, could be winging its way to you. So now listen, I'm hoping there'll be a couple of other prizes as well. I'll get a couple of other things sorted out. So even if you're the kind of knitter who doesn't necessarily like pink and sparkles, I understand that's quite a specific taste, then there may be other incentives for you to join in as well. However, what I think will be really nice is having a place that people can discuss the recipe and how they're getting on with the maths and all that kind of stuff, and we can support each other, and you can enter as many times as you like. So that'll be it. The STU cowl will be on its way, will be set up probably by the end of today on Ravelry. As soon as this is uploaded, I'll have that ready to go. And I will also have a new thread for beard tips, which will be lovely. And if you have any questions for me, please put them in the podcast questions thread. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and do all the things you need to do. Oh, to enter the cowl, you will need to be a member of the group. That would be good. And then other than that, that's all I've got to say. So now I am very aware that although this podcast episode is now a finished object, remember, life is a work in progress. Just take it one stitch at a time. Bye-bye.